My husband had a doctor appointment that day, so we were in Anchorage. The kids and I were just going to wait in the car.
Because I was actually in kind of midtown, and I spotted a white bird flying the opposite direction. So I spun my car around and headed the other direction. Then this white bird went the other direction.
I took the kids and we went and we just parked and we just waited and just looked and hoped. And I was like, just really, really, holding on to everything, hoping that I would get the opportunity to see this bird.
And just as luck would have it, I was able to actually see the creature land just off of Northern Lights, kind of in a parking lot. So I pulled in, and being a law enforcement officer, I pulled in like I was driving my police cruiser and just pulled up, hit the brakes, opened the door and jumped out and just started taking pictures.
So as I'm pulling out of the parking lot where I was, and I'm pulling up to the red light at Benson Boulevard, at the light pole there, the white raven came through my peripheral vision and landed on the telephone pole or the stoplight pole right above me. I was the first car in line at the red light and the bird landed there.
It wasn't until I got home and started looking at my photographs that it kind of hit me that this was an animal that was different and it was special.
And I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that I was leaving, and it was a very kind of an emotional moment. Like I felt like some kind of a connection or something. It just really was. It was one of the most memorable feelings that I'll have. I'll hold on to that memory forever.
My name is Glenn Klinkart. I'm a lifelong Alaskan, and I work in law enforcement and have been in law enforcement for the last 23 years.
My name is Crystal Law. I am a stay-at-home mom. I homeschool 4 kids from 5 to 12. My life is pretty much consumed by homeschool and soccer at the moment.
Being that I'm a law enforcement officer, a lot of my experience is really photography, but as part of work. I started being able to kind of look at, maybe I just wanted to be able to go out and take photographs of other things. And so I actually started taking photographs of landscapes and aurora. So I'd go out in the middle of the night, in the middle of winter, in sub-zero weather to go take photos of mountains and the northern lights.
I've always loved birds anyway, like all of them. And so I actually consider myself a bird nerd. And that's one of my favorite hobbies, is just looking and identifying all types of birds.
I'm not really a big bird enthusiast. I'm not a birder. There are some amazing folks that do a lot of bird photography, and I have a lot of respect for them. But I was really just looking for something else different to kind of take photographs of. And I had read in the paper I believe it was October, that this white raven was out and about in kind of the midtown Anchorage. And I thought, well, if I have a half a day or some time, I might go see if I can take a photograph of this creature.
Is there a difference between the white raven and other ravens? Yes, for sure. The white raven, being a young raven, most likely was hanging out with other young ravens last year. It'll be interesting to see how those relationships and dynamics change as that raven gets older, and if it's accepted by the mature ravens. But as far as just behavior-wise, it does act like a typical raven, but the color of the raven definitely might be something that is going to change the behavior of other ravens towards the white raven as it matures. So the white raven that we have here in Alaska is technically a leucistic raven. It is not an albino raven. So it actually does have pigment. The pigment is just the white color and then the blue eyes. An albino actually doesn't have any color, and so any pigment, and so the eyes are going to be red. So the difference between a leucistic and albino raven, I'm not sure if there have been many leucistic ravens studied, but there have been other leucistic animals studied, and because they do have a little bit more melanin, a little more pigment than an albino, we expect that they can hold the heat better in the winter versus the albino ravens who just, they get too cold and they're not able to survive in the harsher weather. So what we saw last year was that even during the really cold spells, the white raven, the leucistic raven, was thriving and doing just as well as the other ravens that were, you know, dark in color.
So I'm in a group, I believe it's called Birds of Alaska, and someone had made a post that they thought they saw a white raven in town in Anchorage. And then there were more rumors that it was like for real. We didn't know at the time if it was leucistic or if it was just albino. But I was just, every time I went to Anchorage, I would just sit there for hours hoping and just wishing that I could see this bird with my own eyes, you know? So, I was on my way home from Anchorage and I kept thinking, there's got to be a way for like people to update each other with spottings and like locations, and you know, like just give everybody else an opportunity to try to see the bird themselves too, you know. I wanted to see the bird and I wanted to know where it was going to be at the times that I was going to be in Anchorage, you know. So I created a Facebook group on the way home from Anchorage that day, and I don't know, it really just it took off.
I watched as that group grew to 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. I think they finally hit around 20,000 members.
We have 27,000 members now from all over the world. And I never would have imagined to even have 100, because I thought even if I have 100 people with eyeballs in Anchorage, I mean, that's 100 more than I've got, and that would be helpful. So it's really been mind blowing.
And it was one of those things where it became so popular that it almost became difficult to kind of go out and take photographs, because there were so many people who were so interested in this creature that I actually had to change my behavior a little bit. With the popularity of the raven, with the large amount of people, there was some concern, not only for myself, but other photographers, that there were a lot of folks that were kind of pressuring the animal, getting too close. Certainly there was some pushback from the community, from the businesses, because a lot of folks would just drive into their parking lots and sit there, or they'd leave their cars there and running, and they jump out. And so there was some hate and discontent, if you will, with some folks in the Spenard area. One of the things that the photographers and myself did was we would thank the businesses. Several of us actually printed photographs of the white raven and brought them to the businesses and said thank you for putting up with some of us. In fact, it was really nice. I got a very nice phone call from the Spenard Play It Again Sports owner, who was very happy to get it. In fact, he wanted to actually have t-shirts made from the photograph and asked my permission. I said, go ahead. And he's actually going to have more t-shirts and sweatshirts printed, and we're going to use it as a way to be able to raise money. We're going to sell them and raise money for the Bird TLC program, which is a program here in Alaska that actually takes in injured birds and does education. So it's a win-win.
So our mission at Bird Treatment and Learning Center is to care and advocate for Alaska's wild birds. And we do that through rehabilitation of injured, ill, or orphaned wild birds, and through education and outreach. I think what the white raven did was just more interest in birds in general. So in June, we held an event called Mischief Makers, and that was about ravens, well, the whole corvid family and ravens, which are part of the corvid family. And we ended up we sold out the first program, so we had to add a second program. And I think that was because of the white raven. It brought a lot of new people who had not interacted with Bird Treatment and Learning Center before. And I think that was because they had seen this white raven, they had gone to look at it, they had seen its behaviors, and then become more interested in, oh, what are these birds? What are these ravens? What are the other birds around us? So I think that's what the white raven did, was bringing an awareness to the birds who we have around us every day here in Anchorage.
I get asked a lot whether or not I've kind of seen if there's been a lot of differences between the one white raven and say the normal black colored ravens. The first thing that myself and other photographers were thinking about is, where was this white raven when it came to the quote unquote the pecking order of other ravens? People became very concerned sometimes that maybe the white raven being different was going to be picked on. And I always have to stress to people, you got to be careful, because you can't just put human characteristics onto an animal. What you think might be being picked on can actually be learning behaviors, learning where it is in the pecking order, learning to kind of stand up for itself. Or especially ravens, they're very kind of clanny.
His behaviors can change, or his nature might change based on the interactions with people. We want to be very, very careful interacting with wildlife, because we don't want to habituate them. All animals, if they are looking for a food source, and especially animals like ravens that are what we call opportunistic, meaning that they will find food sources wherever is the easiest, wherever they can find an opportunity. So if we see people feeding them, we can tend to have those birds that are more comfortable around people. And unfortunately, that can also make it very dangerous for the birds because they eat things they shouldn't, they get in situations they shouldn't. And quite honestly, there are a lot of people who think ravens are a menace and will do things that could put the white raven in danger. So absolutely, human involvement could change the behavior of the white raven. So crossing our fingers and hoping and educating folks on how to be around wildlife without creating those issues is really important. And that's something that we do here at the Bird Treatment and Learning Center. We do a lot of education so that people know how to interact with our birds here in Anchorage without causing harm to them or safety issues. Gertie, what do you think about the white raven? What do you think about the white raven, Gertie? Huh? Well, okay. So, Gertie, are you jealous? Are you jealous of the white raven and how popular the white raven was? Are you jealous about all the white raven's fame?
One of the things that this experience with the white raven has done, and I think it's a positive thing, is it has people who never gave ravens a second look. I mean, I'll be honest, I was born and raised here. I never thought much about ravens. Like I said, I'm not a birder, so I'm not interested in taking lots of photographs of birds. But the white raven itself has kind of given people an opportunity to open their eyes as to the fact that even in Anchorage, even in this urban environment, we have some amazing wildlife. And having people understand that. At the same time, there's always people who are going to, do bad things. And as a law enforcement officer, I truly have always been brought up to believe that it's just 5% of the population that causes 90% of the problem. So when I do hear stories of people maybe throwing snowballs at the raven or the ravens or things like that, it's in the minority. And because it's had a lot of attention, that certainly indicates that that there may be people that might want to do it harm. And I've been concerned because there's also been reports of people who have been feeding the white raven. And you shouldn't feed any wildlife, let alone a white raven, the black ravens, because what it does is it makes them actually more dependent on people and more likely to get close, which, getting close to a photographer who means no harm is different than somebody who does want to mean it harm. So that's been one of the concerns that we've had, that maybe somebody might do something. But at the same time, there's just been so many hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of people who have become more aware of wildlife and how it is important that we do take care of it, that I choose to kind of look at it from the positive than the negative.
So in most of our cultures here in Alaska, so myself, I'm Anungan, Siberian, Yupik, and ravens are in a lot of our stories. There's a Tlingit one that I really like. You have to use your imagination, which we have to do with most of our stories. But so bald eagle and raven are set to do some tasks, and so bald eagle goes west, raven goes east, and several days pass. Bald eagle comes back, looks the same as when they left. Raven comes back and has changed from white to black, and that's all. So yeah, so we don't know what happened exactly, but that's we can imagine knowing bald eagle and raven.
The story starts off as the chief had these 3 boxes, and the chief was selfish and wanted to keep all 3 boxes to himself and for his family. And so what the raven did one day is that he wanted to see the stars, and he flown into the home and stole the stars and gave it to the people. And when the chief found out, he blocked up his chimney or the smoke hole and made sure that he guarded his boxes really well to make sure that raven doesn't get the sun and the moon, until one day the raven figured out a plan that he was going to turn into a pine needle and get the chief's daughter to drink the pine needle. And what happened is that the chief's daughter went to the river, and she went to go get water with her birch basket, and the raven turned into a pine needle and flowed into the birch basket, and then she ended up drinking the pine needle. And then months later she turned pregnant and gave birth to a boy, and the chief was so excited to have a grandson to take his role as chief. And as the boy grew, his mental intelligence was a lot faster than his body, until one day the chief wasn't looking because he loved and trusted his grandson. The raven took the sun and the moon boxes and ran out and gave the sun and the moon to the people and himself, so now he can see again. Throughout different cultures, it is orally passed down, so it all changes in different region, and that it'll always change. And that's just how the Alaska Native culture is that they all have similarities, and to the core it is the same, but they are all taught differently and spoke about differently. And that the raven is supposed to be a giver and a teacher, but also a trickster, not the creator.
They help us interact with our world. So anytime there's an animal or even a plant or an insect that's different or not the the average, then it stands out, and it usually signifies that something is going to change or needs to change. And so the white raven for most of our cultures here in Alaska is a indication that either something's going to change or something needs to change. So depending on your village or your community, your family. So, but but typically ravens are, they're well respected. We want them to be around.
So the engagement with the group, since the white raven it has only technically been spotted once since it disappeared from Anchorage. So we're not exactly even 100% sure that's where it is. We just know that it was born there and it migrated up into Anchorage in the spring, in the fall and wintertime.
We believe that the white raven was born somewhere on the Kenai Peninsula in the fall, came up to Anchorage. We got to spend 5 months or so with the white raven, and then in April we believe flew south.
The engagement in the group, it has definitely slowed down. But we have our regulars that post, they advertise their jewelry, that they've handmade, or paintings that they've painted, and people, they are still thinking about the raven, and Jennifer Olson is doing a countdown on there every day. She posts a picture of the bird with a countdown for the, I think first spotting of the white raven in Anchorage. So that's been really fun because I'll see it and think, oh yay, it's now we're down to double digits, not triple digits anymore, and it's getting closer
Well, I think just if it ends up coming back to Anchorage for the fall and the winter, to definitely, just like we do all of our other animals, respect its space, watch it maybe from a good distance with your camera or your binoculars. So
We, like everybody else, are hoping that the white raven returns in the fall. We'd be thrilled to see him come back again. And if we find that the interest continues in ravens and corvids in general, then we would love to do another program. We have 2 corvids here as ambassador birds. We have our American crow Gertie and our black-billed magpie Shavila, and they are always up for doing programs. So we would certainly consider that if our white raven returns.
But I do think too the idea of, from the native perspective, that the white raven is very rare, and I hope to see it again. But if I don't, I think it may indicate that we will only see the white raven when we deserve to have it with us. And so I'm hoping that everybody is good and kind to each other, and maybe if we're lucky and we're kind to everybody, that maybe we'll be lucky enough to see the white raven again. To me, that's the way to look at it. And I got to spend 5 months taking photographs of this creature, and I learned a lot. In fact, I have to thank the white raven, because my own wildlife photography skills have multiplied. I have become much better than I was from that first day of jumping out of my car and just taking photographs and just hoping I got something in focus, to trying to get photographs of this creature in front of the moon, for goodness sakes. I mean, who does that? And so I have to thank the white raven for making me a better photographer.
And we're all really hoping for it to turn. I personally believe that it will come back. I don't know why. I just have that gut feeling. Maybe it's just hopeful, really hopeful thinking.